welcome to Acumaniacs. Really glad to be back. And I have to say, I am astonished by the reception that we got from the I really just thought we were not going to have anyone tune in, and just way more than I thought. So really wanted to thank our audience that made it much more than we thought. Dad, I'm talking about you. Thought it was just going to be mom. You actually tuned in. You doubled the size of the audience. That's really, really awesome. I'm really grateful that you spent that time. And I will try to not disappoint you with this episode like I did the last one. Sean Reeves, I want to introduce again. Thanks for being here, Sean. I know you to be a man that has been experimental with haircuts. You know what looks good. You are with the times. You have a cool hairdo. How do you approach haircuts? How do you approach what haircut to get? Just tell me your thought process when it comes to hair.
Mike, man, you put me on the spot again.
I told you I was going to ask about haircuts.
Yeah, now you're really. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's a hard question to ask. I definitely have had a lot of haircuts. You nailed it. You nailed me on that one, man. What I think in my LinkedIn right now, I've got a high fade with I think the part to the right. In my team's thumbnail, I've got military cut, super high fade, 0 on the side. I've had my beard has been all the way down to my chest at one point. And then, the headshots that we took, everybody's calling me John Wick because I was wearing that black blazer and I definitely had the John Wick style. It was Sean Wick, actually, is what they were calling me, Sean Wick. I had that style going. So I've been all over the place, man. I don't know. I see a cut. I'm like, you know what? I like that. And I start going on Instagram. I might Google, and then I'll, honestly, I probably spend way too much time on it. You're going to get a serious answer from me out of that question. And, so I'll look, men's hairstyles, medium length, 2025. And then I'll be like, what? I think I'll look good on that with that hairstyle. And then take it to my barber. Hey man, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? Cool. I'm growing my hair out right now. And this is it, man. After I'm going to let it ride as long as I can. And then, I'll cut it after this, but for right now.
You think Steve Nash length? You talking like how long are you going to try and let this thing grow for? Because I know everyone's asking what's next.
Everybody's asking. Everybody. Yeah,
In fact, I think that's what this whole podcast episode is going to be about. Let's forget about Acumatica. What's next for your hair?
Yeah. The topic that's really just hot on everybody's mind right now. Yeah. What's next? Honestly, I'm actually getting a haircut in 2 hours.
Oh my goodness. So, I didn't know that. I didn't what so you found a barber in Houston. You're feeling good about. Is this your first cut with that barber?
It's a little complicated. The answer is yes. The answer to your question is yes. This is a new barber here in Houston. That this is the first time that this person will be cutting my hair.
You're being big enough that I don't want to get anything incriminating from you by pressing further. So with that, let me introduce our guest for today. My man, Derek Groniger, who we all around the office call OG. Derek, why don't you introduce yourself to the folks? Tell them a little bit about yourself, how you got where where you are and what it is that you're doing with us these days.
Hi, Mike. Hi, Sean. Thanks for having me on, guys. I'm still getting over the haircut discussion, so you have to give me a minute to adjust. I've been in ERP for quite a long time, and it's been mostly manufacturing, distribution, some field service. Spent a little time in the ISV space with CRM, with Salesforce. But most of the time, I think my career, I do a lot of manufacturing. That's where I have a lot of understanding and expertise. I got my start back when The guy who invented the Acumatica manufacturing module, John. I knew John when he and I worked together at Cymex out of Columbus, Ohio. So we both, he taught me about manufacturing back then, doing demos for some of my clients and stuff. So I knew John
Wow.
Schwimmer. So that's how far back I went. Unfortunately, John's no longer with us, but his product is, and we work on it every day. So that's
awesome.
kind of
Well,
the thumbnail approach to it. It's a 3-decade career, and I got too many stories.
I'm sure we'll
ease
get
into it.
we'll get into some of those stories as we go through the podcast. But obviously, why we call you OG is you just basically nailed it in terms of the experience that you have. And I am curious from your hair, because I'm sure you've lived a lot of life and you're a fun-loving guy. What's the most memorable or crazy hairdo? Any that you regret or are particularly proud of?
Particularly proud, I don't think. Back in the 70s, people were trying to do a lot of different things with their hair when I was in junior high. And I can remember getting teased a lot because I was still getting what people referred to as a bowl cut back then. It just combed straight down and zipped across, and hey, I'm here. What are you doing? So yeah, I was pretty much teased about that. Well, I had little body to my hair. I wouldn't part. I wouldn't do anything without a handful of goop and gel. And so I didn't get at it until I was in college, kind of stuff, experimenting.
Okay. Well, bowl cut, classic. I think bring it back. Sean, maybe you could do that in a couple hours.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I could, the hair that I have enough length for it, but I don't have enough strength for it, man. I'm not doing that. Not doing that.
Got the length, but don't have the strength. Yeah. I got it. Well,
hey, Mike, are you going to tell us what yours is? Because I already know the answer.
What craziest or what? Because I don't have a single one that I regret.
I know you don't regret any of them, which is part of the problem. But what's the craziest one? I mean, I could take a guess at the craziest hairstyle you've had.
I think we definitively know that it is the permed mullet that I had with my nice mustache. I mean, it's an iconic look for sure. And I actually cut the hair because Jeremy Patoka, our founder, strongly encouraged me to in order to hire me for the first job that I got in this industry. So if it wasn't for him, I'd probably still have it. I'd probably still be single. So anyways, the permed mullet, very proud of it. Maybe it'll come back in retirement. So anyways, with that said, let's move on into the actual meat of what we are going to be doing here. And, with the show Acumaniacs, what we do is we look to the community and also the voicemail box that we have set up to get questions about Acumatica that we solution while we're on the show together. And OG, behind the scenes, we had you go through a list of questions that we curated, our lovely producers curated, and picked out a couple questions that you would want to address. So as you were looking at those questions and picking them out, was there a theme or like a reason behind the questions that you selected for us today?
I went through the list kind of real high level, and the ones that jumped out at me were the ones that maybe I had encountered here recently doing some implementation design kind of work. So had to help customers solve for these here recently within the past year, I'd say. So.
Well, recency is as good of a theme as any I can think of. So that works for me. Let's go ahead and get into it. The format, as you all are aware, is we're going to listen to a question and then try and guess the AI voice that actually is speaking behind it. And then we'll dive into the question itself. But as our listeners, dad, mom, if you want to call in and leave a question, feel free to do so. We have a voicemail box set up. It is 717-230-1192. Again, that is 717-230-1192. That's me trying to do a little bit like a radio voice thing. But that said, let's go into the first question. We have that keyed up here.
In Acumatica, certain UI elements are tied to special roles, affecting user access even when screen permissions are set. For instance, the ability to open or close financial periods is linked to the financial supervisor role. Is there a comprehensive list of these special roles? and their associated functionalities to help in assigning appropriate access rights?
Okay, so who do you guys have any idea who is the AI behind that voice or the person behind that AI voice?
I think I actually know this one.
I don't know that I do, but it sounded like it was from a speech. Didn't you hear like that reverb kind of that sounded like it was from some sort of speech. So I'm going to guess a public figure or like a politician of some sort. No, Sal's shaking his head. He shouldn't be giving hints.
I think I know it.
Sean, what's your guess? What's your
Fallon.
guess?
Yeah.
Jimmy Fallon?
Yeah. That's what I thought
Wow.
it sounded like.
Ding, ding.
Opening
Okay.
monologue kind of a.
Yeah.
In
play it again.
Acumatica, certain UI elements are tied to special roles, affecting user access even when screen permissions are set. For instance, the ability to open or close financial periods is linked to the financial supervisor role. Is there a comprehensive list of these special roles and their associated functionalities to help in assigning appropriate access rights?
I really like the way Jimmy enunciated roles. That's so strong. That said, so really what Jimmy's asking about is he wants to see a list of roles and what they do within Acumatica. Is that your guys' understanding of basically what he's asking in that case?
He wants to know the special roles.
What makes a role special, OG?
Uh,
Be careful, you'll get a whole bunch of like AP clerks upset at you if you say it's if it's like, you know, level.
So there's roles that are in the application layer that are hard coded in the Acumatica. For example, he references the financial supervisor. That particular one is necessary to open and close periods in Acumatica. Right. So, but that's not anything you pick and choose off the roles list when you're doing user security. So there's a couple like that. There's one more. I think it's the customizer, which is the report writer access. So if you're going to be a financial, you need to write financial reports. You got to have access to that as well. I think that's what they're getting at is if I want to take this away or give this, where do I go find that? And the answer is, it isn't published like in a list somewhere. I've never found it. I mean, I can get all the standard ones that we normally do for turning permissions on and off, revoking this and allowing that. But essentially what it comes down to is if you've got someone in your organization that can get into customized packages and they know a little bit about the behind the scenes, you go to the form you want to lock down. And there's some controllers, some logic controllers, one called verify role. So px access.verify role. So each one of these forms, if there's something hard coded in there, that's where you'll find it. So you kind of have to develop your own list, if you will, your own matrix of those special roles. But otherwise, I haven't seen anything. John, have you ever run across anything more elaborate than that?
Yeah, I mean, as I was listening and thinking about this, because it has come up in the last couple of weeks, like there's your standard user roles, which even your standard user roles, you kind of got to go to the access rights by screen to really find out, like, or even access rights by role. Like there's a couple of screens that you have to go in and see very granularly what does this person have access to. And what a lot of people, like some of them are, like you said, you mentioned AP clerk, I think Mike earlier, like, it's like, okay, I have an AP clerk. I should probably give him the AP clerk role. It's relatively intuitive. And then from there, right, like they might be checking off, or they might be fine tuning access rights, which can be cumbersome, as most people probably can empathize with in that role. And then, but then like OG just mentioned, right, there are some of these other nuanced ones like financial supervisor, customizer, dashboard designer. Like what exactly does this give you? And it's not always the most clear, but I think, some of us or most of us in like the consulting roles kind of understand this. And so To me, there's probably an opportunity to kind of maybe even create some sort of guideline document for like if you're in this role and these are your primary responsibilities, you should probably have X, Y, and Z user roles. And optionally, if you close financial periods, you might want the financial supervisor, and at least some sort of like standard point. Now that happens in the implementation all the time. Like that's how people set up roles, right? But
You're talking about a universal document that people across multiple resellers and across all
yeah, I
customers
mean,
could
at the
refer
very
to.
least, like,
Yeah.
something we should do. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I agree. It's probably something that would be a little bit more beneficial universally. Somebody might have already done it. Who knows?
Okay. Well, that could, if you've already done it and you're listening to this, let us know. That's a great answer. That's a really interesting answer. And OG, I like your technique of getting into the customization project to sort of see the behind the scenes as well. It's a nice little trick for those of us that are afraid of the customization area. So that said, why don't we move on to the next question?
Our production managers need to see inventory levels at other branches without having full access to those branches. How can we configure user security to allow viewing inventory quantities across branches while restricting other permissions?
So name that voice.
I think I'm 2 for 2.
You think you know who that is? OG, you have any idea?
None whatsoever.
I already know it. I'm 2 for 2.
Our production managers need to see inventory levels at other branches without having full access to those branches. How can we configure user security to allow viewing inventory quantities across branches while restricting other permissions?
It's definitely an actor. And it's like right on the tip of my brain, but I can't put my finger on it. Sean, do you want to go ahead and hazard a guess here? George Clooney.
Dude. Oh my
Dude.
goodness. Yeah.
Our production managers need to see inventory levels at other branches without having full access to those branches. How can we configure user security to allow viewing inventory quantities across branches while restricting other permissions?
Yeah, I can hear him scheming a heist right now.
Ocean's 11.
Yeah, totally. Oh man. All right. So what George is asking about there is the idea of letting people see what's in other inventories and other warehouse locations, even if they're not, if they don't have branch visibility as like a member of that branch, essentially. Is that your guys' understanding of what good old George Clooney's asking about?
I tend to agree. They want to see a specific piece of information in another branch, not necessarily give them access to the branch, right? So they need to pull data in from, and it just seems like it's a little bit of data, right? It's inventory. Is that the question? Inventory levels. So, yeah.
So how would you approach that if the inventory manager or the employee doesn't have access to the branch that houses that, warehouse? How would you actually approach giving them access to that limited information while they don't have access to the rest of the data?
So I tend to want to try to use GIs for this and not necessarily try to lock down their visibility to a certain screen. That gets tedious and not always perfect. So if you use a GI, I feel that's probably that's how I'd go at displaying the information that they need. Side panel GIs are kind of my favorite these days. I don't know what form they would be on, that they would be looking for that detail if they were on a production order or an MRP inventory display screen or something like that. But I would use a GI to start with, and then in order to run the GI, you're probably going to have to have some row level security, some restriction groups, I'm thinking. And then in order to, so you would want restriction groups, set up the restriction groups. You're going to create your GI, and then in the GI, you're going to be looking at inventory item by site, location, status, things like that, to build the GI based upon the restriction group. So that's the part that kind of gets a little bit, what's in and what's out. So what's out is mostly everything. What's in is item inventory or status, location, those kind of limited DAC, because that's all you want them to see. And then you display that in the GI. So, and of course it's read only, right? They're not doing any transactions. They're not seeing any cost kind of detail. They're just seeing the status. And so I'm thinking that would be the way I'd go about it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like the row level security is something that we talk about in the pre-sales environment often, that you can get this level of granularity, but cool to hear about that actually in action here, where someone can just look at a very limited set of information from another branch that otherwise they don't have information for. So that's very interesting stuff.
Yeah, we were just solving for this for a client who's got a custom object for third-party installers. And they got to do the same thing. They're like, we got to show them what their route schedule is without showing them, without opening up the whole thing. I'm like, all right, well, we'll create a little portal for them only, GI stuff. It's read only. That gets you where you need to be. And then we can talk about if they need to request things, activities like, hey, I need you to transfer from that other location. Okay, that's when we talk about, but we don't do it usually from that form, right? We'll do it at a transfer order, something like that. So it's a pretty common requirement, whether it's a branch or an object or a certain group of users, internal, external users, being able to use that capability.
Interesting.
Powerful.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to the next question and keep this train rolling.
Another voice.
We stock certain items in multiple box quantities, e.g. box 10 and box 18, but prefer not to create separate descriptions for each. How can we configure Acumatica to help our sales team effectively manage and sell these varying pack sizes?
Is that
tough one? I think I know it though.
it's not Elon Musk, is it? Does that sound a little like Elon Musk? I don't know what Elon Musk sounds like.
We stock certain items in multiple box quantities, e.g. box 10 and box 18, but prefer not to create separate descriptions for each. How can we configure Acumatica to help our sales team effectively manage and sell these varying pack sizes?
I got it. You guys
I'm pretty
got
sure
it?
I know who it is. I'm about to be batting for the cycle.
You want to
Go ahead, Mike.
It's Gordon Ramsay. Yeah. Beautiful steak, see it here. That's my Gordon Ramsay impression. Oh man. Yeah, that guy's a trip. He went to a restaurant in Portland, Maine, that I missed him by an hour. I was almost in the same room with him at the same time. I could have heard the voice in person. Yeah.
Yelling at
Anyways,
you, bro.
so I kind of missed what Gordon. Yeah, he would definitely yell at me if he saw me. There's no question about that. I deserve to be yelled at by Gordon Ramsay for sure. But I was so intent on listening to who it was that I don't know that I fully caught the question. So Sean or OG, do you guys have some understanding of what the lovely chef was asking there?
Yeah, he's asking about multiple stock quantities, multiple, keeping things in different pack sizes, I call them. So a dozen, a box, a half a dozen, a 3-pack, same product, just in all these different pack sizes.
Okay.
And they do not want to create different items for each. That's their challenge. right? It says we prefer not to create separate descriptions for each, which means they don't want a different item. They want one item with all these pack sizes. Right.
And then if you ask Gordon how strongly he prefers that, then he'll probably yell at you. So you want to just go with what he's asking for, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, Gordon, if you want to go about this route rather than doing individual SKUs, you want to have units of measure. So that's your next task, right? You have to go into Acumatica and you have to configure the units of measure per these pack sizes. So you got to kind of count on having your fundamental pack sizes in each, because that's how you're going to price it. So if I pick 10, it's 10 times that amount. If I pick an 18 pack, it's that amount times 18. So if everything is related to eaches, then you go into the unit of measure, create the different pack sizes. Box 10, box 18, box bigger, all equals one unit. And so when you're on the sales order, then you pick that unit and you scroll over to the unit of measure and you drop that box down. You say box 10 and watch the price change because it just updated. So that would be the way to do it. However, Gordon, I don't know that that'll be fun reporting against when you're trying to do a sales analysis, because you got one item. You got all the sales against it, and it could be in a 12 pack, 20 pack. You got it'd be fun to not have to write that GI to try to help you figure out, like, well, what's selling better, the 12 pack or the 18 pack? Well, okay, we got to write a per order, read it all, as opposed to creating different stock items for each. It's a little easier, I think. But if some people have a very large SKU list, and I can empathize with that. So my response to that is, have you looked at matrix items? Acumatica will generate the description for you based upon the variables and the attribute. So matrix items might be the way to go. And if you're and it only works for a certain item class. Matrix items isn't for your whole database, right? So only certain items, finished good items, would have that kind of thing. But matrix items, individual SKUs, that would be my preferred implementation, Gordon. But unit of measure conversion should suffice if this is the way you're determined to go.
And would you push back on Gordon with that kind of question? Like, how would you approach that from a consulting perspective? They say, this is what we want. Would you, how hard would you push back to try and understand if another simpler reporting methodology would work versus just kind of adhering to what he's asking? Would you just be so afraid of his British insults?
OG would definitely stand up to Gordon.
Oh,
yeah, would you?
I've stood up to a lot of meaner guys than that. Yeah, I mean, you just ask them, like, have you explored the solution of going at this route? Now, usually a guy like Gordon at his level, he doesn't care about the individual peeps problem of creating all these items and descriptions. Like, he doesn't give about little people having to worry about that. I would show him, like, giving a dashboard. You're going to see your pack sizes and what's selling better and where you're making better margins and those types of. That's where I would lead them. Ask them if they've explored that yet. Ask them how they're doing that analysis today. It's probably in Excel or some other pivot table. Kind of a fun to work with, fill the data points in. So I'd be like, yeah, let's streamline this. Part numbers, don't be afraid of having too many. I just talked to somebody who's going to have to create new part numbers from scratch. They don't have them yet. They're going to need 375,000 new parts.
Well,
because they've got just these variations, and it's like, but Matrix takes care of it for you. Zip.
Yeah, and the filtering and universal search, right? Like, it's not
item classes,
as big of something like that. Yeah.
So,
well, the last question I've got as a follow up to this segment is, what would Gordon Ramsay think of your cooking? Do you think? And Sean, same question goes to you. Would he be delighted, or would he yell at you if he tasted something that you made for Gordon?
Oh my God. It comes out of a microwave. What do you think?
Yeah. You'd be turning the tables, man.
Just throw it
You would,
over his head. Yeah, exactly.
I think
uh,
my wife calls me Chef Excellence because I rearranged the pepperonis on a DiGiorno. She's a
attention to get
Chef
that.
Excellence, man. Like, just, hey, man, I know how to rearrange them pepperonis. Maybe I'll put some sun-dried tomatoes on there, some fresh ingredients on the frozen pizza. I
Oh my goodness.
I can cook a little bit, but she's the cook, man. She got like 200, 300 cookbooks, like, and I'm not even exaggerating on that number. So if you ask
Wow.
Gordon to taste one of her dishes, it'd probably be pretty good. He'd probably be like, yeah,
Mm.
that hit. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't do a whole lot, man.
Yeah. Well, fair enough. I mean, if we can solution for Gordon's inventory issues, I'm sure he'll be marginally happy, even if he doesn't like the microwave food and frozen pizza. That said, let's move on to the next question.
Hi, Mike and Sean. My name is Tim Rodman, and first off, I'd like to congratulate you for launching Acumaniacs. I love the name because I personally have probably watched every single Animaniacs cartoon episode that there is. That was the first thing that I would do every day after school when I was a kid in elementary school. And thank you for having Holly Clark on in your first episode. Like Holly, I also primarily use a left join instead of an inner join. Hey, maybe we should create a feature request on community.acumatica.com to have left join be the default when you add a related table, and then get a bunch of people to vote on that request. Just a thought there. Now for my very important question. I personally pronounce it generic inquiry, but I've heard other people like Doug Johnson, who was the first Acumatica employee in the United States, pronounce it generic inquiry. Then there are people who like to avoid the debate altogether, and they simply say GI. My question is, what is the linguistic history behind the difference between saying inquiry and inquiry? Thanks again for all that you do. I look forward to listening to future episodes.
All right, so let's play Guess That AI. Who is that, do you guys think? No, I'm just kidding. That's Tim Rodman. He called in, and everyone else that's listening, mom, dad, call in as well. The number again is 717-230-1192. Again, that's 717-230-1192. So, before we answer about Latin and the origin of words, inquiry or inquiry, let's go down the list. OG, you're first.
I think he mentioned Doug Johnson. Was that right? Did I hear that? Doug is from the great state of Virginia. And I tend to think that's closer to England than perhaps the guys in Seattle who, maybe don't say it properly, using proper English, inquiry. So that's my take on it. That's why he heard Doug pronounce it correctly, I believe.
Okay, so you're going with the Doug Johnson, closer to our friends across the pond methodology of inquiry, not inquiry. That's what your take is.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Yes, sir.
Sean, how about you? Do you have a dog in the fight, or are you a coward that says GI?
I mean, I definitely say GI, dude.
Yeah.
I just say it's a GI, but I usually just refer to it as a generic inquiry because, not everybody knows what a GI is in this context. You know what I'm saying? So, we can be like, yeah, man, we just need to build a GI for this, da 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 da. And people are like, a what? Generic.
Right.
Yeah. Generic.
I'm definitely a coward. I go GI, and I'm so unsure about this raging debate just because it's so polarizing. Like, if you say the wrong thing, like, your family won't talk to you again, which is just crazy. Like, can we all settle down about this? So I tend to say generic and then sort of mumble my way through the end just to avoid falling into a camp. That's how I
Like, you trail off.
It's a good strategy. It's really important to just, like, you can even start with the inquiry but then finish finish with it being not clear. Inquiry, generic inquiry. That's the way to do it. And then you won't lose any friends and your family will continue to talk to you. So that's how I approach it. Let's go to a quick ad read, and then we'll come back with one or two more questions. Hold on one second as I get ready for my ad read.
You're going to leave this in, right? You're going to leave him changing for getting in character.
Okay.
Great jacket.
Our gracious sponsors. All right.
This episode is brought to you by Business Consulting Leader. Whether it's an implementation, a rescue, continuous improvement, or even fractional ERP admin, BCL provides solutions you can trust. Remember, folks, it's wise to trust BCL. And by Red Top Cigarettes. For a mellow taste you just can't quit, always tell them, I want the ones with the red tops. Enjoyed by 8 out of 10 doctors. And finally by Uncle Walter's all-weather wash powder, because no one likes a damp-smelling boy.
Takes off jacket, gets serious again. I don't remember.
Thanks for our.
I don't remember signing off.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't remember signing off on sponsoring this podcast.
The thing is, Sean, is that you're too executive. I try to keep you out of the little people stuff. So I figured I wouldn't bother you with the sponsorships. And I'd just do the ad read and sell my soul. And, Uncle Walter's all-weather wash is a good product. So why not? And who doesn't enjoy a red top cigarette?
Crickets.
I'm just going to say, I haven't heard a smoke commercial in few decades, dude. That's been a while.
I mean, it might be disclaimed that these are fictional. That's a fictional organization. The only real organization there, it was ours. And Business Consulting Leader's real. Red Top Cigarettes.
Oh, no. And it is legitimately wise to trust BCL for solutions you can trust. But, we don't recommend smoking cigarettes. But thank you for the money, Red Top Cigarettes. Let's move to the next question.
We frequently exchange components in products before sale, e.g. swapping wheels on a vehicle. How can we set up sales orders to reflect these swap outs accurately, ensuring inventory levels are correctly adjusted?
Okay, I think I know who this is. Do you guys know who it is?
I know who it is too. I'm about to hit for the cycle today.
Yeah, you are. OG, do you have any idea?
None.
Okay, let me ask you this question. Is there like an era that if we had picked voices from that era, like if it was like Henny Youngman, would you have got that one?
TCM movie channel.
Okay.
I would recognize Humphrey Bogart and Cary Grant and John Wayne. I might even recognize a little Clint Eastwood.
I was just going to say Clint Eastwood.
Dirty Harry.
There you go.
Yeah, I'd recognize a little Dirty Harry. Go ahead. Make my day.
Cozy
Well,
Wales.
so
We don't
for the
have
next
studs like that anymore. Yeah.
The next time that you make an appearance on this episode, we'll make sure to go to a TCM, level so that you can kind of
I can
have
participate.
some chance. Yeah. So do you want to play it again? I think I know who it is. Sean, you want to be the one to guess?
Go ahead, guys. Guess. I will. Yeah, I hear it 13 more
do
times.
you want to play it one more time? I mean, I feel like I can just tell you who it was.
Just say who it is.
I think that was Ryan Reynolds.
That's who I think it was too. Yep. Ding, ding, ding. Man, Sean, on fire. Great at identifying AI voices. Did you know that you had this skill? Is this a hidden skill or is this something that you know of and are proud of?
Not proud of it. But I mean, I didn't get Obama right last week or whenever, not last week, but last episode.
Yeah.
I'm just on a hot streak. That's all. Proud of that.
Yeah. Well, it's impressive. And I feel humbled to be in your presence. What is the question? You want to replay the question just so we can focus on it?
We frequently exchange components in products before sale, e.g. swapping wheels on a vehicle. How can we set up sales orders to reflect these swap outs accurately, ensuring inventory levels are correctly adjusted.
Man, I can hear the mischief in his voice. He's got such a aura about him, doesn't he? That Ryan Reynolds. So he's asking about you have a sales order, but you're swapping out a component on the sales order before you ship it, but you need to make sure that the components are accurate when you make those exchanges. Is that essentially what the question is?
Yeah, I want to swap things out, and I need to keep the swapped out parts inventory accurate. I think that's their main concern, is making sure accuracy of inventory. They want an easy way to swap out parts. There's a customer I did last year, had this exact thing. They sold helmets, racing helmets, and the cheek pads get swapped out, extra large, thin. They had different millimeter size cheek pads, and so they wanted to easily swap those out. I talked them into, convinced them that the right way to probably do it was using a non-stock kit, right? And doing those kit components, you could do it there. That would be the preferred way. A lot of companies, they're not into kits for whatever reason. If you're not using kits, the only other way to do it then is you have to use an inventory adjustment. And you can use a negative on the same form, right? So the part that's coming out is a negative adjustment. The part that's going in is a positive adjustment. So you can put that on the same one. So that keeps your inventory in line. The kit allows you to do that a little bit more streamlined, less clunky response. So that'd be the two ways I'd do it. The way I suggested, by the way, that company went ahead and won an award at the last summit. Yeah.
Wow. That's
great.
That's incredible.
I was happy to see them up there. I didn't get to see their faces a lot during all the discovery workshops and stuff. And so when I saw them up there, I'm like, I think I recognize that one though. So it was pretty cool. I remember talking to those guys about that. They were hesitant. Don't be. Use kits. Helps.
And you'll get up on stage, right? That's the end result of using kits.
Yeah, you might win an award too.
That's great. That's great. Well, I'm looking at the time here. I'm thinking maybe that's all that we have time for today. So let's talk a little bit about just like final thoughts here. Any themes or specific things that were memorable for you as we were talking about these different solutions? Sean, I will put you on the spot here first.
I mean, obviously, it was memorable, hitting on all four of those AI voices, right? That was a victory that I'll claim for sure. But I mean, I think it looks like obviously like other than the first one that had to do with user access, the second, third, and fourth question that we covered were kind of related to, sales orders, inventory, production, which are right up Derek's alley. And Derek, you had some good answers and some good pushback to Gordon Ramsay specifically, which how you kind of communicated that here is kind of what is typical, right? And in those discussions with the client about some of these requirements, that maybe you have a better solution, or you might need to think about a different angle, like the impact on reporting and those kind of things. So it can be very tempting to just answer the question. And I think Derek did a good job of presenting, a little bit more of a holistic perspective, or attempting to get a holistic perspective there on that. So I thought that was good.
OG, how about you? Any final thoughts, takeaways that you want the two listeners to have, or, specific things that stuck out to you from our conversation?
No, I think that the first question we were talking about, that we were trying to grant access to, or maybe it's the second question, grant access to inventory across branches, involving row level security. That's something you got to test. That takes a while to get right. It's an iterative process to get that to work correctly. But I believe that using a general inquiry is the better way to do that, as opposed to trying to give somebody limited screen access and stuff. So to me, that one holds a lot of admin. I kind of gravitate towards that question. I kind of enjoyed hearing Sean talk about his planned haircut here in an hour or so. So I'm interested to see what it looks like next week.
Well, for me, it was really interesting to hear about the customization element that you talked about in that first question. But, inventory and those types of things are almost a foreign language to me. So it was really interesting to hear some of the more complex questions that come up in that sort of space, and the power of Acumatica, the solution for things that aren't, to Sean's point, necessarily clear answers just when they're asked. So it's really cool and validating to see how many tools are in the tool belt to solve for these types of things. And I really appreciated that. Well, OG, thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure having you on. I'm glad you were here. And the ladies at the Knitting Podcast are at the door, and they look angry. They want their studio. So we've got to go. Until next time, it's been Acumaniacs. Thanks so much.